In this video, we're going to talk about creating placements for enrolments in the system. The default terminology used in the system is placements, but can be changed to traineeships, apprenticeships, and internships within the core system settings. While each of these types of work-based learning have different requirements, they each work as the same object in the system and can be configured accordingly. Aside from the setup we've done so far in the previous videos, we also need to have an existing enrolment before we can create a placement. If you aren't familiar with this process, we suggest that you go through and watch our video on how to enroll a learner linked in the description. To create and manage placements, navigate to the Placements tab of the Work-Based Learning area, which will be the default tab when you access this area from the menu. As with the other key areas we've seen so far, the placements will appear in the primary list on the left side of the screen, which can be searched and filtered. This list can also show individual placements or be grouped by class. Click the New Placements button to get started. Search for the learner contact you would like to create the placement for, and then select the appropriate class enrolment to link it to and the relevant trainer. If a trainer exists against the class enrolment, they will be selected by default. Then, the required duration for the placement. This will be the minimum amount of time the learner must participate in work-based learning at a host employer and record that in their logbook. This can either be set to be calculated through hours, which will be the duration of the time recorded in each entry, or days, which will be determined by the number of daily entries made by the student. Next, select the host employer for the placement and set the start and the end dates. Placements are able to have multiple employers selected for when a learner will work with multiple organisations as part of their learning experience. Only one placement can be linked to a class enrolment, so setting multiple host employers is used for when placements have multiple stages. The start and end date of the placement will be determined by the earliest start date and latest end date of the selected host employers. For this scenario, we will add two different host employers that the student will visit during their placement. When this is done, click Create Placement. If the learner has not yet been created as a learner user, they will be after the placement is created and sent login details. The template they will be sent is the learner-generated user template in the default system templates. This information will just be about logging into the learner portal, but not have any information about their placement and accessing the learner app. To send them this information, a workflow can be set up to send a template containing this information upon creation of the placement. Use the Send Contact Template action along with the Placement Event Trigger type and Placement Created Trigger to create this workflow. Then, create and select a template that has all of the information you would like to include for the learners to get started with their placement. There are plenty of other parts of the work-based learning process that automation can be implemented for, but this is a great place to start to save admin time. After creating a placement, you will be taken to the Placement Details page. On the Details tab, you will first see general information about the placement, including the linked enrolment, trainer, required hours, host employer, and the dates. Host employers can be added and removed as long as at least one remains, and the details can be adjusted as needed. There is also the option to send a template for a particular host employer. When using a template that has host employer fields, only the information for the selected host employer will be pulled into the template. When sending the template from the class enrollment, the information of all the host employers will be shown instead. Placement template fields will behave the same in either scenario. Below the host employers, some details about the contacts are shown, as well as emergency contact details. After that is the placement notes, which can be used to record information and upload documents for other admin and trainer users to access. At the top right-hand side of the column, you'll see the placement progress and status. Progress is calculated by the time recorded in approved logbook entries made by the user compared to the required time to be logged for the placement to be completed. Time can also be manually recorded by admins to account for any time the learner has earned but has not been able to log for some reason. This may be useful for transitioning existing learners to the new system without them needing to record all previous hours. Below the progress is the supervisors assigned to the placement. These are separated into a list for each employer that can be viewed by changing the selected host employer. There will be a primary supervisor for each host employer to indicate to the student who the primary point of contact will be while working with the employer. When the placement is created, it will be assigned to the primary supervisor of the host employer by default, but other supervisors from the host employer can also be added. Supervisors can also be removed, but at least one primary supervisor always needs to remain. On the Activities tab of the placement, you will be able to see which activities are available for the learner to select in the app when creating logbook entries. The activities displayed are those mapped to the qualification of the enrollment the placement is linked to. The display of the activities can be either grouped by task type or by mapped unit to help give insight into which activities are available. Individual activities can be disabled for particular learners or done in bulk by either activity type or unit to make them available activities more specific to certain learners. Now that the placement has been created, the learner can begin making logbook entries and accessing information about their placement. In the next video, we'll be demonstrating the admin view of the learner's logbook.